Now, you've done some other things,
Mm-hmm.
and as a matter of fact, as we're recording this, you just came from an interesting meeting, talking to some folks about film in Iowa and documentaries and that type of thing. Tell me what's on your mind about that, because you got to get up there and speak. And
I did. Tonight I spoke. I went to the Iowa Motion Picture Association. We had our networking night, and I was asked to speak. And actually, just kind of what we just talked about Templeton and I making film. It's more from the production standpoint on things, because we made the film for very, very little. In fact, we made 2 films and an album. We made the film for $21,000, and it seems like a lot, but in the film world, it really isn't, because that's your paycheck. I haven't, and it's not all a paycheck. I mean, it's bills that need to be paid to make the film.
Sure.
As I kind of talked about, it was like we made a feature-length film, which was Capone's Whiskey, the story of Templeton Rye, which that was the only thing we set out to make. And I also talked about how in that time, we also made a 30-minute film, which was Templeton Rye, Iowa's Good Stuff, which aired on Iowa Public Television back in October alongside Ken Burns.
Cool.
Which was very cool to have that experience.
Yeah, sure.
And then the guy who composed the majority of the music, Brad Morgan, who's out of Manning, Iowa, which is right next to Templeton. He recorded the album, or recorded the music for it, and I said, I was originally just going to pay him $200 for doing it. He did such a nice job. All he did is show up with his guitar. But the guy had some talent. I said, listen,
it's good music.
If me giving you money isn't going to help you, let's do this. So I recorded his album in 2 days, and then recorded or did the mastering a day after that.
Wow.
And this guy is unbelievable. He's one of the nicest men you'll ever meet. Well, I shouldn't say he's 20 years old. He's a boy. But he sings because most of the songs he wrote, he's from that area. So he knows about Templeton Rye. He grew up with it. But a lot of it's very dramatic. And, he's 20 years old. So when he had a breakup at age 16, it was like a huge deal to him.
Sure. Yeah.
And we recorded it. We set it up in my studio office. Is literally my dining room. My home, people call it the treehouse. It's on Polk Boulevard. It's sort of a duplex, except it's on top. It's 2 sections on top of each other, and I live in the top part.
Gotcha.
I have to go upstairs to get to it, and we call it the treehouse. And we recorded it in my office studio area, which is my dining room. And the guy just knocked it out, and 3 things came out of this. It wasn't just making a movie. It was all these things came out of this mission, and I made a lot of friends up there. In fact, I kind of miss. It's weird not going up there like I was, 3 times, 4 times a week.
Well, it was your work.
It was, but it was part of my life. That was watching that movie, as I said at the premiere. That was my life for 2011.
That's cool.
That was what it was.
That's cool. In the process of making a film, my sisters made a documentary. We had Graham Merriweather, who did American Meat. He did his documentary, and the process is and it's like any film. You see the film, but there's a process that you go through that is long and involved beforehand, afterwards, and then the initial recording, of course, which can be difficult at times because you're dealing with human beings, and especially a documentary where people may or may not want to tell you all the facts. And in this case, you're dealing with people that maybe feel guilty that they did something illegal, producing whiskey, or they had family members that did, and they don't want to get them. They still think, they could get into trouble, or I could get into trouble, or maybe it's I don't want to have a negative reputation from my telling what really happened. But it turns out a lot of people finally did open up. They got a sense of trust from you, and I think from the guys at Templeton, that this was worth it for them to do it.
Oh, it was, and a lot of them, they did a private screening up there for some of the elders of the town, and they loved it. They had an absolute blast. And there was a few people that said, well, there's more to we do have more information. It's like,
how much can you give?
Yeah, how much more can you give without making it too long? The film's 75 minutes, and when I edit, I've never been diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure, I know I have severe ADD, and I'm the king of the shiny object. So when I edit a film, I make sure that if I can hold my own attention,
then it's good, right?
then I can hold everybody else's.
Interesting.
If you notice how fast pacing, how the cuts are, one of the times a lot of the good comments I heard were, I was never bored, and all before I knew it was over.
Wow, that's good.
And
that is good.
There was a review from the Ames Examiner that said, I loved the guy said he loved the film. The only thing was he wished it was longer, and I was like, that's a great compliment, because that means when I do the DVD, I can have a little bit of an extended cut.
That's right.
And actually, since then we did in the second screening, we did add a few more things to it.
Okay.
A little more about Sioux City and Al Capone's brother, which we do briefly mention in that cut that you saw. So there's a little bit more, but to have that as it's better to hear that than saying this should have been over an hour ago.
Yeah. No, you don't want that. That would not be good.
No, not at all.
No, it is an engrossing film, because when I was watching it, I was never bored, and I'm a big history buff, but my liking history is ancient history. Okay, but this is still in a way ancient history for me. I was born in 1960, so and I never been one to consume alcohol on a regular, sustained basis, and now I'm diabetic, I can't drink it at all. So, but it's still an interesting thing, because I remember my grandfather talking about the fact that he went to the Hotel Fort Des Moines here with his father to have a drink, okay, and in the speakeasy here. Now, they were Methodists, and they don't drink, but it was Templeton rye, and so they had to have a drink when the speakeasy got some, and I didn't know a thing about Templeton rye, okay, at that point. I'm like, what is that? What is that? And then the whole thing came about. This all came about, and I thought, Templeton rye. I remember my grandfather talking to me about this, telling me this story about when he was a young man and his father took him there. So, but, that's a different history.
And, we kind of solidified that when we had that audio recording in there from Joe Earl back when he talked about bringing it to the Hotel Fort Des Moines. Yeah. And, again, when I didn't include this part of it because it was, we just got out of caucus season. And in one of those interviews, they talked about back in the 40s bringing the Templeton rye to the 8th floor here at the Hotel Fort Des Moines, which was the headquarters from the Democratic Party during the election season. And I was like, I'm just gonna leave it out for right now, but and that might include in the DVD cut. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of history, and we are right now we are in the Hotel Fort Des Moines.
Yes, we are. Top floor. And unfortunately, we don't have any Templeton rye to sample, but that's okay.
Whatever happened to that bottle we brought?
What bottle? Yeah, no bottle in here. So, project? Anything coming up that you're working on?
Yeah, right now I'm filming with metal sculptor James Bearden. I'm working with James Bearden and body paint artist Emily Savek.
Body paint artist.
She paints people.
I have seen this type of work actually out in California, and it is very interesting. It is very interesting. Matter of fact, I went to a party out there, and there were some people walking around that were body painted. They had nothing on except for the body paint. Mm-hmm. It was a special party for the grand opening of a shoe store, and I'm not going to tell you what brand that was.
That's awesome.
And that was back in the 90s.
That's awesome.
And it was really fun.
Well, my background, from the non-documentaries, I've done a lot of short films that were very avant-garde. And one of my biggest influences in filmmaking were a guy named by the name of Ken Anger. Okay. He was the guy that he wrote the book Hollywood Babylon.
Oh, I've heard, yes, yeah.
And remember that TV show Hollywood Babylon? That was his. Yeah, and he did these short films that were so weird. I mean, they're weird. They're great. He was the guy that people like Anton LaVey the Church of Satan would have him house sit for him when he was on vacation. And Ken Anger would be in there filming these movies in Anton's house while he was away.
Oh no!
And so he has these weird sets and all these things.
God.
But his films are so, I mean, they're just beautiful to look at. And he had a lot of like doo-wop music and cool stuff. And then Stan Brakhage, who was a filmmaker from Boulder, Colorado, who used to take the film itself and like take his fingernail and etch things into the film and the celluloid.
That's interesting.
So I'm kind of able to kind of go back to do this new feature, which is, it was originally, they saw my film Hybrid Pioneer. The producers saw it and they really liked it, and one of the producers is James's agent.
Okay.
And they wanted to they're like, well, we'd like to do a documentary about James. Well, I've already done a documentary about an artist. I really didn't want to do that twice.
Okay.
And James really didn't want to do a documentary either. As I talked to him, James is an artist, and he's really into. Like, he's the guy that'll talk about how the metal speaks to him. Like, he's way into it. So we both kind of agreed that a documentary is not what he needs. He needs something that's expressive, and I do too.
Sure.
And then I decided I wanted to bring Emily in, who Emily worked with me on. I did an exhibit here, and this is weird because you think a normal art exhibit. I did a short film exhibit over at Finders Creepers here.
Oh, really?
The little horror boutique shop, and I had in each room, 4 rooms, I had a different short film playing in each room.
Oh, really?
With artwork by other artists in town, including Frank Hansen, Van Holmgren, Chris Roberts, and Alyssa Harder, and they did paintings that were based on the film. And then on the opening night, Emily brought 3 girls in. We didn't do one for each room, but we just chose the ones that we wanted to do, and we had these girls in these rooms that were painted as if they were part of the film too.
Oh, that's neat.
And I knew I wanted to work with her again, and this project came up, and I said, this is going to be way out there.
Yeah.
You know,
but it'll be interesting.
it's going to be, one of the things, as you know, you're never bored, and my thing is I want to make sure that your eyes are on the screen the entire time, and you will definitely, for this, you're definitely going to have your eyes on the screen.
Cool. Now, one last thing before we end our little show tonight. You mentioned something that's coming for the future of film, and how film is going to be presented on the theater.
As we recorded this earlier this morning, we got the announcement that Kodak is filing for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Which is really hard because Kodak, they've been a supplier of 35 millimeter film for motion pictures since they opened. That was their big thing. That was their moneymaker.
Yeah.
At one time in New York, you could find a lab at every corner to process your 35 millimeter film, and now you have to send it out somewhere else to get it processed. The future's changing, and unfortunately, they were too little, or they didn't make that jump to digital. Not only are cameras switching to digital, I mean, you have hard drives now. I shoot HD, but I'm still shooting on tape as a medium because if you notice it was shot digitally, but it didn't really look video. It didn't look like video at all. It had a nice film look to it. Yeah. It was kind of degraded and everything. Naturally, I didn't do any effects to it. Well, you have cameras like the Red camera. You have the DSLR, the ones that are, the DSLR that looked like a still camera, 35 millimeter still camera, but they're shooting movies on it. And it's beautiful. A lot of commercials are shot that way. If you remember a couple weeks ago, the Iowa Nice video that came out, that was huge. That was shot on DSLR. Things are changing, and not only are they changing in that manner, but now they're changing. When you go to a theater, there's the 35 millimeter print, which is usually 3 or 4 canisters of film reels to show the movie, are going away. It used to be to make a negative, your final cut, your negative, $50,000 at minimum just to get it printed, and then to make your actual prints from the negative, it was about $2,000 to $3,000 per print.
Wow.
Just to reach out. And that's what you're thinking. You want to reach so many thousand theaters at one time. That's expensive.
Yeah.
So the jump to going to digital, where you don't have that medium, and when we think green companies, the new system is called downstreaming, which I am finishing up my downstreaming rights for Capone's whiskey.
Cool.
That way, there's companies out they're all over the place, but they went in and they voluntarily went in and asked theaters, can we set up a downstreaming system in your theater? They'll do it for free. They had investment, a lot of money invested in this. Go in, set it up. Now, when they order or they book a movie to be downstreamed, then they get a percentage of that to pay off the equipment. But it's all up on a cloud. All your films are up on a cloud. They just book it, just like you would book a 35 millimeter print, except there's no shipping cost. You're not physically moving it. There's no physical media. As you know, celluloid itself is not good for the environment.
No.
In any way.
No.
But it's all up here. It's
wow.
all,
It's in a cloud. Wow.
And it can broadcast. Cool. It can shoot to anywhere it needs to go.
Wow.
It's absolutely unbelievable. There's still situations like you still have to go through, if your film needs to be color corrected for big screen, you still have to go to Technicolor. You still have to do all those things. Those processes still are there. But now it's letting small companies like mine, Modern American Cinema, as we are now acting as a distributor as well, not just as a production company. We're also acquiring films from people too to distribute because this is huge. This is huge. We've already, we went ahead and developed that relationship as a company with our exhibitors, they call them, to do this. And this is a new way. This is unbelievable.
This is the future.
This is the future. You can take a $20,000 movie or even a $10,000 movie, or probably even less than that, really, and you can. The cost is lower, and it allows theaters to book, something that's not from the major conglomerates. They can just go directly and say, "This is what we want. We want Modern American Cinemas. We want Capone's Whiskey. We want Hybrid Pioneer."
There you go.
That's
cool. That's cool. Fantastic. Hey, you know what? We're out of time. We've run long, but that's okay because this is a great interview and very interesting subject. I wish we could talk more. Kristian, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Hey, and we'll get you on the show again in the future.
Thank you, Peter.
Folks, thanks for listening to Green City. I'm your host, Peter Sherinian, and we'll see you again next week.